It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofits, the very first one of the year 2023. And of course, you all know this is the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Kelly Laughlin, and today I am joined by, all the way over on the other side of me, the jaunty Jason Friedman. How you doing, Jason?
Hey, Kelly, how you doing today, man?
Awesome. And next to him, the spectacular Scott Dickey. Hi, Scott, my fellow Midwesterner.
Oh, yeah. All right, Kelly. I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. And then next to him, the fantastic Phil, the Caribbean skeptic. I'm so happy to be here with you today, Phil.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you too, Kelly. Thanks.
This show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And we not only have an awesome panel today, but we have a great lineup of stories to talk about. First, we're going to talk about the Lux lifestyle preacher arrested by the feds. Yes, it's the return of Bishop Bling Bling. And church abuse probe ends with a very quiet plea. Next, baby condemned for loving gay people. And we're going to finish off with the Barbados High Court striking down buggery laws. As with all of our shows, links to today's topics and the news that we discuss are available in the description below. And if you want to come into the show completely prepared, you can check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. And we are going to start back with a story we covered last year, a little bit of a follow-up. And Scott, he's gonna take the lead on it. So take it away, Scott.
Sure. This article was from insider.com, and the title is Bishop Robbed on Live Stream Claimed His Lux Lifestyle Was Funded by God, but feds say the money wasn't his. And so this is something that the Nonprofit has touched on previously. Apparently, and this article was written by Haven Arekio Agresits, and it was published on December 21st of last year. So this Bishop Lamore Whitehead, he was famously robbed on live stream during one of his sermons, and he's one of these prosperity gospel guys where he collects all the money, wears the flashy clothes, wears the expensive jewelry, and so they were robbed at gunpoint on live stream, as it happens. And they were robbed of about $1 million worth of jewelry and things that they were wearing. It just, first of all, what the fuck? I mean, what's up with that? Anyway, there's more to the story. So this robbery story brought the attention of the press and of the police, and so they started looking a little bit more closely at Bishop Whitehead and discovered that there was a little bit something fishy going on under the covers here. He's been charged and was arrested, charged with what was he charged with? Extortion, wire fraud, and making false statements to the FBI. And this story just really hits me right in a sore spot. I could rant on this for days, and so before I say anything, I'll see I'll see what the rest of the panel has to think about this.
Well, Scott, if I could jump in real quick, I took down a couple stats on this that really stood out to me. So what's really interesting is, on Sunday, less than 24 hours before he was arrested, he held a sermon in which he said Gucci, Fendi, and Louis outfits were proof that a mix of God's will, unwavering faith, and financial donations that's what led to his wealth. But what's really interesting is you're talking about the people that he abused. So there's two people that really stand out to me. One It was between April 2020 and July 2021. Whitehead defrauded a member of his church by eliciting $90,000 from her, promising he'd find her housing and then use the money as an investment in his real estate business. After the woman transferred the money from her retirement account to Whitehead, he used it to buy luxury goods and spend it on himself, per the FBI, and he never found the woman a house. And then the second, it was between April and May of 2022. Whitehead asked to borrow $500,000 from a businessman in exchange for a stake in his real estate business. Of course, that man didn't see anything else coming back. It's what we're seeing here is no different than the mountains of crooks and snake oil salesmen that we see plastered across this, kind of a capitalistic hellscape. He's just another fucking vulture. He's using this guise of holiness and success to lure people in who have been primed to follow leaders like sheep to the slaughter. Does this justify his behaviors? No. Should he be held responsible for his actions? Of course. But I think the people involved would benefit from taking some time to evaluate why they so readily gave their hard-earned money to this person. They were wanting to make money. They were trying to make gain. Talked about how they were, I'm going to put in just a little bit, but then I'm going to get back a whole bunch. And that right there is just corrupt at its core. Kelly, I'm really interested in what you have to say about this. I know you and I talk about some of this stuff on the side.
Well, I'm really glad to see Bishop Bling Bling get what's coming to him. I do not condone or encourage robbing people at gunpoint and stealing $1 million worth of jewelry from them. But in this case, it led to something bigger and better, right? One of my favorite things to say to people is, may life give you exactly what you deserve. And if you're a good person, it's a compliment, it's well wishes. But if you're a dick, and in this case, I was happy to finally see someone get out of life exactly what they deserved. If you're going to go ahead and bilk people out of their savings, you're going to go and con poor people into financing your outlandish lifestyle, $1 million worth of jewelry that was what was stolen from them. Then when someone robs you and steals that $1 million worth of jewelry, and instead of you being the poor victim, but you turn into the criminal yourself upon closer inspection, you got out of life exactly what you deserved. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I think he deserved what he has gotten, because I realize that this identity, trying to coerce persons to fraud is something that he has done before, because he was charged and convicted of identity theft in 2006, using a victim's personal information to buy cars and motorcycles. So this is nothing new for him, right? And he had several civil lawsuits. He was convicted of those things in 2008 and served 5 years currently in Sing Sing Correctional Facility before being released in 2013. Right, so I think he's still carrying on the grift from before.
I agree.
And on top of that, he tried to persuade this businessman that he was earlier got $5,000 from, right, unscrupulously, I must say. In a scrupulous manner. He tried to coerce the person in lending him $500,000, but he tried to sweeten the deal by claiming he can get favorable actions from the New York City government in order so that he could get that money. He told the person, look, I can do some favors for you. And there's a 500,000 investment that you can get millions from. So this is nothing new to him.
No, it certainly isn't. Scott, did you want to add something? Jason?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's really a couple things going on here. First of all, there's this guy who's ripping people off. I mean, he's stealing from them, and he's clearly not doing that great of a job of it either. So, so we
Keeps getting
we
caught.
should have exactly, yeah, we should have expected this. We should have expected this. But
Yeah.
but the other side of this is these people that they're, I mean, the circumstances are very frustrating. They're very heartbreaking and anger inspiring. It's these people, he's playing on their trust, and it's not just like
Yeah.
some guy walking up to you, or trying to play 3-card Monty on the street or something. He's in a position that is traditionally looked to as a trustworthy position, as something that somebody can lean on in hard times, and so on. And so it's to me, that makes it particularly heinous. His followers are vulnerable
Yeah.
to this type of thinking. I mean, to this type of situation. They attribute an unwarranted level of trust and admiration to these leadership figures, these religious figures, and that puts them in a position where they can be easily manipulated. And we've covered stories like this time and time again on the nonprofits. I'm getting going on the rant here, so if you want to shut me down, just let me know. But it's an example of the halo effect, and if you're not familiar with the halo
Yeah.
effect, simply psychology describes it as the halo effect is a cognitive attribution bias, as it involves the unfounded application of general judgment to a specific trait. For example, if we perceive a person to be warm and friendly, we will attribute a number of other associated traits to that figure without any knowledge that they're true, such as they're generous. And so if you see a positive trait in a person, you're likely to ascribe other positive traits. And so there's this connection in many people's minds, not in mine, but in many people's minds, that trustworthiness and godliness are like so closely tied together. And so they see this man of God here, and they think this is someone we can trust. I mean, how much more vulnerable could you get in a position like that? And so then, we have to realize that these people can take advantage, regardless of whether, this is even separate from the God issue, whether or not there is a God. We can even set that disagreement aside. We can all agree, though, that the people running the churches are people. They're people, and they're going to be prone to the nastiness and the dishonesty and all the foibles of being a human being. And so even setting aside the God thing, this is something that we should all be able to agree on. And that is that we need to be able to trust these people in these positions, because there has to be people that we can trust. I don't know, Jason, what do you think?
Well, so look, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have no disagreement with what you're saying. And especially when you're talking about the halo effect, it brings up a lot. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to say. The first thing I'd like to ask maybe all of y'all is, how much of a responsibility do the parishioners play in this situation? What I'm saying is, yes, this guy is automatically considered a good person. He's considered holy, trustworthy, godly, all the things that you attributed to. It gets smoked. You can show up somewhere and be a Christian and be like, I have a community right away. I say the right words. I act a certain way. Oh, you must be a good person. Watch my kids. So, okay, I understand that. You mentioned that in psychology. That's what we study in psychology. So, yeah, you're dead on about that. You saw that with Ted Bundy. He had the halo effect like a motherfucker. I mean, that guy slaughtered people, and people were swooning over him. So, yeah, all because he was a good-looking guy. Even the judge said, you're such a well-spoken and good-looking guy. It's a shame that you're a killer. So, but again, I'll bring it back. And Phil, you look like you want to say something. I wanted to ask, what responsibility do the parishioners play in this? Like, where should we be like, well, that was a fucking snake, and it bit you. That's what it did. What snakes do. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Phil?
Yeah, I think the parishioners, as you correctly said, they have in their mind, this is because they are projected, these guys in these leadership positions within, especially the church or religion, tend to be projected as these guys who are supposed to be pious, who are supposed to be trustworthy, and of course they take advantage of that, right? They take advantage of that. And then on top of that, I relates to that what they do, what these leaders do there, because the congregants have this perception, they play on the sympathy of their congregants, right? They
Yeah.
create this false victim mentality to garnish sympathy, right? And if you realize he claimed that is a conspiracy against him, but a conspiracy against him by whom? You know, it is mind baffling. And then on top of that, these grifters claim to have this connection with a god,
Yeah.
right? And then do this to honest, hard-working people. And my thing is, if this God exists, he just sits back and watch the trauma the actual victims go through and do nothing. What do y'all guys think about that?
I'm not sure what to
Really?
think about that, honestly. I look at the con that this guy pulled, and I think one of the big cons, and it's how he got into that position where people trust him, is by how did he get that title bishop? I brought this up the first time he came into it.
Yeah.
He just gave it to
Yeah,
himself,
you're
right?
right.
And you'd
Yeah.
think there'd be some kind of oversight on that title by the religious community. I mean, you can't just go out and call yourself a doctor without having some kind of qualification, because other doctors are going to call you out, right? And you would think
Yeah,
that
you're
other
right.
like real
Mhm.
bishops would be speaking out against the false representation of the title. I mean, just to have him make himself a bishop tells you that he's a con man to begin with, right? That's a warning sign to begin with to me. If someone can just name themselves a bishop, what meaning does the title have at all? It doesn't. It has nothing. You know, do you see what I mean? Anybody
Yeah.
Yeah,
want to follow up on that,
if
or
I could
any
jump in,
other thoughts?
yeah. So having grown up evangelical and with like a strong kind of Southern Baptist backbone, there were bishops all over the fucking church. So the thing is, this is like, okay, so the guy did this shit where he defrauded people, identity theft. He served his time. Well, there's that big narrative within Christianity of like, that was my past me. This was before I was saved. I was lost. This was tribulation. Like, people are really ready to forgive some bullshit, because when you think about it, again, I bring this example up a lot. It's like when you're at a bar and you're drinking with people, and the fish was, this big, and the girl was this hot, and I was just blah, blah, blah. Everything's bigger and more bullshit. Well, nobody calls each other out because the other person is also lying next to you. So
Mhm.
you're allowing for these lies in this fucking echo chamber. So of course he's a bishop, and he probably named other people bishops and other people. I mean, that's what happened. I remember in the church I grew up in, you just have this little clique of people, and they give each other these titles, and they have these
Right.
decisions, and they just fucking disperse whatever they concoct, and
Yeah.
then see what happens. Right. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Scott, how do you
And
feel about that, man?
I
don't know
want
if
to
you have any
actually jump
experience with
if
that.
I want to jump back to your question, actually, Jason. Earlier, you're asking what's the responsibility of the congregants,
Okay.
and first of all, I think we would all agree that we're not victim blaming here. We don't want to victim blame. They bear no responsibility for the actions. They weren't asking for. They weren't dressed for it, right? They weren't asking for it. And so, as far as the crime itself is concerned, they have no responsibility. It's entirely on
Yes.
on the bishop,
Mhm.
on the bishop. And
Yeah.
but having said that, we all have a responsibility to to check up on things, to be there's the
I
reasonable
agree.
amount of self-preservation and observation and knowledge of your environment, and if not only for your own safety but also for the safety of the others around you. So the congregants, I think, do
Yeah, I
have a
agree.
responsibility to make sure that their trust is well placed, to make sure that their confidence is well placed, to make sure that there is good reason, reference checks, and things like that. That's not relevant to the crime itself, but it's part of being part of this human society. And I think if we want to shed some of this irrational baggage, it's gonna take things like this. And I do have some. I'll just say one more thing here. I do want to say that there is good news. There's good news. And I found a Gallup poll. According to Gallup, Americans' ratings of honesty and ethical standards of clergy have been on the decline. In recent years, the percentage of Americans that would rate ethical standards of clergy as high or very high has decreased from a high point of 67%, and that was in 1985, down to a low of 37% today. So trust in these pedestal positions, right? These positions where people are just kind of pushed up into this location here, pushed up into this position. Trust in those positions is falling, and I think the evidence shows that it's warranted that the trust should fall, and so there are. It shows that we're at least wising up. We're getting better.
Yeah, I agree.
Phil, you want to get the last word in on this?
Yeah. The thing is, you see how these guys play on the trust too is like we know he was previously found guilty of identity theft and larceny, right? But then he makes the claim that God transformed his life through grace and love.
See,
right? So, and then he claims
there it is.
Everybody thought I was a villain. But now they're saying I was anointed by God. This is 24 hours before he got arrested.
Right.
Terrible.
But
the irony is thick. The irony is thick.
Well, the Christian God is a forgiving God, though. So, it's okay.
See, that's the whole fucking thing.
See, that's the problem. Yeah.
Yep, that is the problem.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
That's the fucking thing. And then who are you to not forgive somebody, right? If God can forgive me, who are you? You're just a mere man. You don't understand. God uses me. And of course, you look at David and look at all these other shitbags in the fucking Bible. It's like,
so it's even worse than just trust. Is if you lack that trust, you're shunned. If you don't have that blind trust, if you start to question, I wonder if we should be giving $5,000 to our bling wearing ex-con here. I wonder if that would be safe. No, don't doubt. You have no faith. Your faith is weak. Go, it's
right.
You're screwed even if you try to be reasonable.
Yeah, no,
I think we're all in agreement now. I mean, but I hate to cut us off, but I need to thank all of our veteran and our new viewers for getting us over 11K subscribers. Yay! So if you are watching us now and you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Get on that stuff. And then once you have subscribed, like and ring that bell so you always know when a new Nonprofits episode premieres. It is every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central, though, but you already knew that, I hope. Then you can share the link to the channel with your friends, your family members, co-workers, that neighbor guy you don't really like, everybody that just came into town with the circus, anyone and everyone. We need to get the word out there so we can start helping with those fundraisers. And are you aware that the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? You should be. You really should, because we do. Check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all the ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episodes of The Nonprofits, The Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, and all of the other fantastic ACA shows so you don't have to miss a single episode. And with that, we are going to hop into segment number 2. And this is about a 20-year-old church abuse probe that has been going on in the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Philadelphia. And it has finally come to a quiet end with the misdemeanor plea of an aging cleric. This cleric is Monsignor. His name is William Lynn. He was not accused of doing anything with the children himself. However, he knew about the problem and he did nothing about it. He says that he did pass it on to his superiors and they kind of just blew it off. And he is now taking the responsibility legally for this of not having been investigated. Phil, you want to tell us what you think about this?
Yeah, but he is saying that it is he passed on to his superiors, but from what I read, he seemed to move in one case, he moved a priest who was a known pedophile. They were having problems at that particular parish, and he moved the priest to the Philadelphia circuit. And then there was this guy who accused him of abuse. Not him, sorry, accused the priest that he moved of abuse. And I think that's what also was brought up in court. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, I don't know why it took so long, right, for the investigation to go on, because then the statute of limitations expired. So this one guy was the only one that lied within the statute of limitations. What do you think about that, Scotty? What do you think was going on there?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure where to start here. I mean, it's a story about these terrible crimes involving the abuse of children, and you know, it's all the makings of a Hollywood smash hit, right? We got this large scale cover up. We have enabling of those crimes by this church organization. We have this massively influential and wealthy Catholic Church, and the deep corruption from within the church. And you know, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I mean, this really highlights. It's similar to the previous segment where we were talking about misplaced trust. And so, but in this case, the misplaced trust is institutionalized, right? And so what we're seeing here is that, you know, are they cutting this guy a break or something? You know, are they cutting him slack? Because, well, first of all, of course, it's frustrating that we see this type of corruption and cover up happening. But the frustrating part is that it seems like there's nothing that's really being done about it. And I don't know, Jason, what do you think about that aspect? I mean, it's, what do you think?
This shit really gets under my skin. Well, I mean, one thing that really stood out to me is that he's the first church official that has ever been charged, convicted, or imprisoned over their handling of priest abuse complaints. Let me see. He served 3 years in state prison before the appeals court throughout his felony child endangerment conviction, and then he pled no contest in November 2022 to a misdemeanor charge of failing to turn over records to the 2002 grand. I mean, it's just all these little things. Now, at his trial, Lynn
with no
said
further punishment.
35. No further punishment. So, and it's wild because Lynn said that he had made a list of 35 suspected predator priests, so that Bevilacqua would address this matter, only to have the list be destroyed. Lynn, who has remained a priest through this whole time, has been saying mass for retired nuns with hopes to get more duties. The trial accuser said that he had been abused by 2 priests and his Catholic school teacher. One of them, the defrocked priest Edward Avery, took a plea offer days before the trial. The Reverend Charles Englehart, who said he had never met the accuser, was convicted in 2013 and died in prison. And then teacher Bernard Sherrill was released in 2017 after his conviction was overturned, like Lynn, and pled no contest to lesser charges. So, yeah, Kelly, what you were saying about them, like, are they really even getting punished for this? I mean, and then whatever happened to the 35 other things that were destroyed? And I mean, I just don't get it. People have so much power over this. Phil, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, a thing that I realized was that even the person that came forward, right, and accused, who was still within the statute of limitations, apparently questions were raised about the legitimacy of the person's testimony, their testimony, because apparently that person had a history of drug addiction, right? So, and
that's so fucked up.
Yeah, and then and that the what he was saying, what the testimony that was given seemed outrageous, basically. right?
Right.
So
That's a way to
I
what a way
I
to marginalize somebody, man. What's up, Kelly?
yeah,
What you got, man?
I I'm having a hard time talking right now. This kind of ties into our first story, and what Scott was talking about is using this religious authority, right,
Mhm.
to take advantage of people.
mm,
They were both Bishop Bling Bling and the priest in this case were both using their religious authority. They used the goodwill of believers to take advantage of innocent, vulnerable people. And in this case, it's even worse because they were fucking children. And I don't like, I don't normally swear on the show, but this really pisses me off. They were
mhm,
ruining these
Yeah.
poor kids for the rest of their lives. The article, as Phil mentioned, the article even says the one boy had a drug addiction problem his whole life. And I'm going to speak from my heart here, and this is why it's hard for me to talk about this. I was a phys- I had a, was physically abused as a child. I had PTSD for the whole first half of my adult life. I could not deal with life. I was so messed up. I was involved heavily in drugs. I drank too much. I was in the same position this poor boy was in, and it hurts me so bad to
Mhm.
hear and see somebody else in that position. And I was running away from the reality that haunted me instead of standing up to it, facing it, resolving the pain within myself. It took me 2 decades to get my shit together, as you can probably tell from the sound of my voice. I
Mhm.
still
wow,
don't have it completely together. I still do get triggers to my PTSD every once in a while.
mhm,
And I can understand what they did to these poor fucking kids. And it just
yeah,
breaks my heart. So
mhm.
anybody else can take it from there. Sorry.
Well,
I,
Kelly,
I
thank.
realize, or sorry, but just one thing I want to say is that I realize that it seems as if the church drags their feet because I don't know, this is my perception, observation. It seems as if they drag their feet to that the statutes of limitation will pass, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that, as Kelly said, it breaks his heart, it breaks my heart too. And this makes my blood boil when they get away with this here. If it was anyone else, they will have had them convicted. I suspect from what I am seeing with these cases within the church, these abuse cases within church, it seems as if the church drags their feet and shift around these priests so that the statute of limitations run out, right? Because that is what happened in this case.
Mhm.
Um, there are many more, according to the article I read, there are many more children
Mhm.
who were abused by the priests, right? Not this priest that that compiled the list, but the priest that got moved. But the statute of limitations, which is I think is 20 years, had run out for those victims, apparently. And it it hurt my heart to hear that they were suffered and the priest is basically, getting away scot-free. And then
Mhm.
this witness, because they had a history of addiction due to the trauma, right?
Yeah.
Now their history of addiction is being taken as, oh, this person is probably lying. This is ridiculous. Well, well, guys, what do you say about that? I mean, it really gets me angry.
Yeah, it's and it illustrates kind of what we've all been talking about, and that is this undeserved
Mhm.
special place. But and it the yeah the church definitely drags their feet to try to wait out statute of limitations, but there's more to it than that. Listen to what Monsignor Lynn, what his response was. I did not intend any harm to come to the victim. The fact is, my best was not good enough to stop that harm. And I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that. He did not do his best.
No,
No,
not at
he
all.
How
did not.
hard is
Not
it?
at all.
How
Not
hard
at
is it
all.
to stand up? He knew that those priests has been accused of abuse, and he covered it up anyway. I mean, yeah, we could say he was just obeying orders. Where have we heard that before? And much of the blame should have gone on his superiors. But he did knowingly endanger children, and so he should be convicted
Mhm.
of child
Yep.
endangerment.
I
And he
agree.
was twice convicted, but both times they were overturned, and then they settled on this plea bargain for this misdemeanor. I'm not entirely sure that justice was not
Deserved.
correctly applied here for this
Mhm.
particular individual. He did spend some time in prison, and so it's not like he's just he's skating. I think in many ways the church is kind of throwing him under the bus and saying,
Oh,
"See,
yeah.
look at this. We're cracking down. Look what's happening
Mhm.
here." But I would be curious to see how similar trials would turn out if it wasn't Monsignor Lynn who's the defendant, and I'm sure they took every opportunity to say that during the trials. Um,
Mhm.
but it just makes you wonder how deep this goes. I did find an article on Salon.com highlighting what they call the 5 ways the church gets preferential treatment. And one of the ways they said was involved in criminal investigations, and we've seen plenty of this.
Oh, yeah.
And they cited an investigative story from the Dallas Morning News from 2004, and it referred to the case as William Lynn as being exceptional. Jason, I think you mentioned this before about how people, priests haven't normally gone to prison for this kind of thing, and so
No, they haven't.
in that way it's
Mhm.
unusual. But according to the Daily Morning News, or the Dallas Morning News, and their investigation says, since the clergy sex abuse scandal exploded anew in 2002, referring to this story,
Yep.
Catholic leaders have taken the brunt of the blame. Overlooked is the role of the police, prosecutors, and judges. The people expected to hold abusers accountable when the church itself will not. Law enforcement typically has helped through inaction, but sometimes the age has been direct. And I do, in full disclosure, I want to point out that Salon.com did not provide a link to this Dallas Morning News article, and I couldn't find the article myself. So take that information with a grain of salt. But I do like the fact, regardless of what we think about what happened to this one man, regardless of what we think about is happening with the corruption in the church overall, it is at least it's bringing this constant bringing this to the attention of people. Say, hey, look what's going on with this. This is happening. We need to wake up and smell the coffee here. Jason, what's your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I wanted to kind of discuss what you were talking about. Like, is this a systemic problem that we're not only seeing in the church? And it has been consistently a systemic problem. What I'm meaning to say is that people are not adequately punished for child abuse, for hurting and raping and pillaging and doing all those horrible things that predominantly men in power do. It's really sad. I've been going down a criminology kind of rabbit hole since taking a break this past semester. And I've been obsessing over serial killers, mass murderers, and just stuff like that. So just a lot of information still, but it's kind of relaxing. What's really interesting is the reason that people were able to get away with stuff was because they did things to children. They did things to sex workers. They did things to gay men. And that's the group, especially gay men and sex workers. We call them the less dead, and that's
the
referring to the
marginalized
police.
people.
Yeah, they're marginalized. So you also have to look. Only recently have we really cared about the well-being of children. It's really interesting how commonplace child abuse and sexual abuse was. It still is, but much more commonplace and less of a big deal. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. So when we look at that, the people who are doing it are men who are in charge. So if men who are in charge want to stay in charge, it's that barroom analogy. You have to support each other's bullshit. This y'all are right. That the first thing and now this one right now, it's the same shit. What we're seeing is the same shit. We are seeing, sadly, heteronormative men in positions of assumed authority able to get away with the most horrific shit. And being somebody who is also going through trauma therapy, due to things like sexual abuse and stuff like that. I understand from experience how much it just fucks you up for unless you work through it. It just fucks you up for so long, and it makes it hard to function. I dealt with drug abuse, substance abuse disorder directly after I was abused, and I went down that rabbit hole for about 4 years. And that didn't make me less of a person. That didn't make me immoral, but we have drugs and immorality kind of tied together. And that's the bullshit that's being perpetuated by the fucking Christian right. But, you know, we find these guys time and time again extorting money, abusing children, these pray the gay away fuckers. They get caught with underage boys doing drugs, you know? So I don't know. This shit breaks my heart. Kelly, I know this one really hit home. Would you mind giving me kind of your final thoughts on this?
I wish this Monsignor had done more. I realize he took a list of the offending priest who was
done more to help, right? Done more to help.
Yeah. Well, okay. No, just more, right? More to help. He brought that list to his superiors. They ignored it. He knew they ignored it, and then he just ignored it as well.
Yeah.
He could have gone to other authorities. He could have gone to the police. He could have gone to the media. These are kids. These are kids whose lives have been ruined. And they were ruined with basically his approval. And
yes,
I can't say, I don't know that 3 years out of his life in prison was enough of a penalty. To me, it wasn't.
No.
You know, I mean, I spent 25 years trying to find myself, right? So 3 years is nothing to me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to talk about this subject.
I understand. And what's fucked? The guy stayed a priest. That's the thing. It's not.
That's one of the big main problems right there.
So, fuck that guy too. So that's all I got to say.
That's a good way to sum it up. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
Okay, well, I guess that is a good sum up, and we can move on then. And as long as we're moving on and taking a break in the conversation, if you didn't tune into the other ACA shows last year, here is what you missed.
What has your experience been? What tips can you give? What does it look like for somebody who's maybe just getting started? And
I can always give more than just the tip.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
You know, I mean, we've always been taught about the great I am. And,
of course. Yeah. We've been primed.
But where the hell did this come from?
Drugs.
Yeah, drugs.
Drugs. You know, maybe it's my good looks. I don't know. They feel like they always need to tell me about Jesus. And
it's not your good look.
And it's not. No, it's definitely. They're trying to keep themselves just praying.
You just have that face that you need to be saved, honey.
Even then, Ben, atheists on Twitter will argue all day about, do we lack a belief? Do we claim that a God isn't real? You know, like there's even semantics there as to what actually an atheist even is.
I didn't get to meet myself until I was in my 20s. And I hope that today's kids get options before that to really meet themselves while they're young. So you can have your closed-minded ideas, but I don't think that it's improving anything, and the data shows that.
Hey, if you could arrange to be in the Austin area between January 26th and the 29th, I am going to arrange for that. Consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at 6 p.m. on Thursday and Friday and noon on Sunday. Parking is wherever you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. And I'm warning you, I'm going to be getting there early, so you're going to have to beat me to a spot. And if you can't make it there this month, bummer for you because you're not going to meet me, but we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of every month. So keep watching this show and our website, atheist-community.org, for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. And with that, we got some music news, and I think our local musician, the jaunty Jason Friedman, is going to take the lead on this one. So what do you got for us, Jason?
All right, so this is going to be me kind of strangely positive. I'm going to go ahead and introduce this. This is on onlysky.media. And the title is Christian Bigots Condemn Amy Grant for Extending Jesus' Love to Gay People. Award-winning singer Amy Grant is receiving backlash for hosting her niece's same-sex wedding at her farm. So I don't even know where to go on this. Okay, so you have this guy named Franklin Graham. He's a very well-known Christian evangelist. And you've got this cat named Tony Perkins, who's a hate group leader. And they're freaking out over the fact that Amy Grant is going to host her niece's same-sex wedding. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do a quote real quick that stood out to me that Franklin Graham said. I'm pulling up my notes right now, y'all. Okay, so quote, Amy Grant announced to the Washington Post that she and her husband, Vince Gill, are going to host a same-sex wedding on their farm for her niece. Amy is quoted as saying, Jesus, you just narrowed it down to two things. Love God and love each other. Now, Franklin Graham says, yes, we are told to love God and love each other. But if we love God, we will seek to obey his word. Jesus told us, if you love me, keep my commandments. God defines what is sin, not us. And his word is clear that homosexuality is sin. We have all sinned. And in order to have a relationship with God and spend eternity with him in heaven, we must turn from our sin and put our faith in his son, Jesus Christ, who came to blah, 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 blah. So Franklin Graham, for whatever reason, is allowed a platform, and he's not getting shut down for just spouting this fucking garbage. Before I start ranting, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Scott, and I'd really like to get your opinion. We talked about it a little earlier, so I'd like to get your opinion on this.
Sure. Well, first of all, kudos to Amy Grant, right? Yeah. I mean, she's just one more in a long line of religious people that have shown that they are, without a doubt, more loving, more moral, and more thoughtful than the God that they say they worship. Mm-hmm. And so they ignore the dictates of the God, but they stand up for what's right. And I think, kudos for that. If more religious people were like that, I think this world would be a much better place. I think we'd be moving in the right direction. However, if we look at it from the perspective of Franklin Graham and Tony Perkins, and I have to admit, when I first read the story, I was reading Tony Perkins, but I was thinking Tony Robbins. And so that cast the whole different light on the story until I figured out what was going on there. So they're actually right. They're not right as in morally right, but they're correct about what the Bible says there. Their special book does condemn homosexuality when it's read as it's written. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, there's lots and lots of Christians that interpret their Bible differently. But if you look at it for what it actually says, the words in the book, there's nothing good about the LGBT community there. Yep. I mean, the fact that Graham and Perkins were finger waving shouldn't be surprising to us at all. I mean, this is, let's face the facts here. This is textbook bigotry. The fact that it's in the name of some holy authority doesn't change what's really happening here. If it looks like bigotry, if it swims like bigotry, if it quacks like bigotry, fucking bigotry. I hate the bigotry. I hate to break it to you. It's still bigotry. It's still bigotry, and it's, I don't know. Phil, what do you got? What do you got for us? I've tied up my tongue into a nice knot here.
I said, way to go, Amy. She hosting her niece's same-sex wedding at her farm. Way to go. Especially, I know she has gotten a lot of flack before from Christians. She got flack for not just singing gospel music, deciding to go into other genres, for creating love music like Baby, right?
You gonna sing us a little few minutes of that here?
Baby. It's nice, man.
Yeah. And on top of that, she's progressive, right? And she's apparently supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. And a lot of them are fans of hers, right? And I can see where the Bible, they're holy, but expressly, as read, condemns homosexuality and LGBTQ stuff. But I think she just looked at it from, so she said, from Jesus' point of view, that, Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself and to love God. Right? And I think she is progressive. And even if she
that's the crime. That's the big crime.
That's the big crime. Yeah, that's the big crime. Right? And of course the bigots are Franklin Graham and the other guy. They are saying, oh, she is sinning, she's encouraging sin, etc. But as I said before, I found that in going through, I realized that going through the article and looking at some background information, I realized that she got a lot of flack before from the Christian community, as I already said, for going into a different genre of music, for marrying a divorcing and marrying a divorced person a year later, right? And so I remember when I was young, when she got divorced, because I was still fundamentalist Christian, I condemned her. But the thing is that she was not happy in the first marriage, but she got condemned for that. She got condemned for a whole host of other things, but she moved on. She kept her head up and she moved on. So basically, she doing this. She doesn't care about what those bigots say, right? So in that way, and she does sing well. She has a really nice voice, and even the secular genre that she sings, even the Christmas songs that are secular, done really well. So these guys, you see, these guys, they talk about love, but then for them, what is more important is following their holy book.
Yeah, they don't practice what they preach.
Right,
Well,
they don't practice what they preach.
If I may,
So,
maybe I kind of want to hit on what Scott said, because when you look at the verse, the love thy neighbor stuff, it's like, yes, Lord, who is my neighbor? When we talk about, love God, love your neighbor, and then the Good Samaritan, the idea of the neighbor. Jesus describes a very specific neighbor. Your neighbor is not every person. Your neighbor is a person who, I forget the exact what it's like. It's one thing. It's like these two stipulations that he put in. That's your neighbor. That's who you should love. So Franklin Graham and his buddy Tony, I have to agree with Scott on this one. They're following their book to a T. Now, we could dispute the translations of homosexuality in the Old and New Testament, especially like the 1 Corinthians 6:9 one, because he uses anybody who's a thief, anybody who's homosexual, and a lot of people think that that's pederasty, actually, and it was translated into homosexuality because of bigotry. Now we could argue all that day and night. So, but the thing is, what we understand as Christianity condemns homosexuality. Those are the words in front of us. The thing that gives me reason to fear being a queer dude is that these people are taken fucking seriously, and that they're given a platform and they aren't automatically removed from look, I'm all about free speech. I love free speech because I want to know what you fucking think, so I know to avoid you or who I'm going to have to fight against. So proverbially fighting, but sorry, but I had to say that. But that said, I am disgusted that these people are even taken seriously, that they're given platforms. Kelly and I talk about this a lot. I always pick his brain about politics and why people are allowed to speak on this stuff. Kelly, how do you feel about this whole free speech, Franklin Graham getting a platform and even allowed to be taken serious?
I like it when people have platforms. I totally believe in free speech.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, when people come out and say who they are, it lets me know who I need to stay away from and who I need to fight back against. So in that respect, I appreciate it. In another respect, I don't appreciate it because they are gaining followers and
Yeah.
they're spreading this word of hatred and bigotry. And that really, really bothers me.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know
yeah,
if anybody else picked up on the language from Perkins and Graham.
It's
I
fucking
caught this
terrible.
really weird vibe of like an abusive partner out of it. You know, the way they were worded was just so awful. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in a household with an abusive step parent, and the abuse wasn't just to me, it was to my mother as well. And I read some of these comments, and it sounds like the same shit that used to be told
Yeah.
that my stepfather would say to my mother. You have to do it according to the way I want you to do it, or you're going to face punishment. There's nothing else that can happen. You need to be punished because you didn't follow to the letter what I said.
So
And it's just disheartening to me. It's you would have thought that when Amy Grant said something about loving your neighbors and loving all people, that would have just squashed that criticism right there before it even happened. But no, they had to come back and use this abusive language like that. I don't even know what to say to that.
Listen, and the thing is, you're right, because they both of them talk about love, right? And both of them were basically saying that people want to conflate love with affirmation, and but they love everyone, but cannot affirm all choices, and then start to quote God so loved the world, blah blah blah, and about the sin and so on. But my thing is, it is not a choice who or which sex we have feelings for.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Both Perkins and Graham is basically saying that LGBTQ plus feelings are not part of nature, when scientific studies indicates otherwise, right? And on top of that, there's nothing, I can use a little Bajan, there's nothing such as sin, right? And basically the definition, Bible definition of sin is a missing of mark of God's standard.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
What is that?
So it is not following, in other words, they want to follow a command from a despicable God. Oops, sorry, I mean a good God. Regardless of whether
Freudian
that command is moral or not, right?
Yeah.
Now, how have they determined? My question to them is, how have they determined that these pronouncements, right, from the God himself, that homosexuality is a sin? It's not just a sin; it's an abomination. And terrible. when the Old Testament use the word abomination, is a stench. That's what it means, a stench, right? It goes deeper than even sin. It's a stench in the nostrils of God, right? So, but how do they know that God himself is good, right? Even if he existed, how do they know that he is good? So when they come with this bigoted start of thinking, it really gets me angry, because of course they're just basing it on a 2,000-year-old book, archaic thinking book that is not based on science, is not based on what we know of psychology today. So this has created a lot of trauma, and they don't care. For me, it seems as if they don't care about the trauma caused to those persons who have these feelings for the same sex, for those feelings. They don't care about the trauma. So of course they can send them to conversion therapy schools, camps and all sort of thing, and traumatizes persons, and then cause some of them to commit suicide.
Mhm.
And
You're
then
right.
claim, oh, you see, they need God. It was the homosexuality. It was the lesbian. It was this that caused them to go and commit suicide. No, it's the trauma you Christians create by doing that conversion therapy and telling them they are no good and they should not have those feelings.
No, I agree. Yeah, you
So
can't.
that's my rant.
No, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I couldn't change what turns me on. I mean, something turns me on, or who I want to spend my time with, or who I like to
Right.
be. Like that's like I couldn't do anything about it. And the thing I wanted to hit on one thing you said about a good God. Now, the way I was raised had a very Calvinistic type of backbone, so we weren't really concerned about God's goodness. It was more a might means right. Like, it doesn't matter if God's good or not. It's God. So, you better watch out. And it was interesting because even as a young Christian, I kept a lot of atheist friends and queer friends. I wasn't out. I'm only recently out because of people like this. And I would, whenever I would go preach to people on the street and, well, God, this, that, and the other, God says this is bad. It's like, why? It's like, well, it's God. I mean, I can't change the rules. I'm sorry that it's this way. I don't hate you. I can't judge you. This is who you are, but I'm just trying to tell you the rules and I'm scared for your soul. Right. That's kind of like, I was terrified of that fucking God. And to me, that God was just like, we needed to do all the right things so we wouldn't get fucking punished. Scott, you seem to
we should all be terrified. We should all be terrified of that God.
Well, that God has those friends, and I'm terrified of those friends. Those people hate queer people, and it's fucking terrible. Scott, how do you feel about that, bud?
You said something there, and it kind of it's stuck in my brain. You said that's just what God says. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think what they're doing, I mean, they're whitewashing. Okay, here's this list of things you're supposed to do. They're equivocating between obedience and love. I mean, they're saying God is love, but they're saying love, but they're not really meaning what I consider to be love. Yeah. I mean, I consider love to be a good thing, about sharing and about caring and about being thoughtful and about being helpful and about being concerned for the well-being of others and things like that. Obedience is not high on my list of characteristics of a loving relationship. Like Kelly was saying before, it's starting to sound kind of creepy. It's
abusive.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it is. It's abusive language.
Red flags are popping up all over the place, and it's just a repackaging of this. Say, oh, but now we all know that love is a good thing, and so here's what love does. Love does the hard, the tough love, right? Love does the hard duty. Love tells the hard, painful truth. Phil, what's your take on that?
Yeah. What I wanted to say is that yes, Amy Grant is cherry picking from her early scriptures. Don't get me wrong.
I like cherries.
I am happy.
Yeah, cherries are tasty.
She is not a bigot.
Yep.
Like those other Christians like Franklin Graham and Tony Perkins. However,
not Tony Robbins.
Right, I'm not Tony Robbins. However, her reasoning for accepting her niece and her partner is still based on the flawed story of Jesus and the Bible. Yep. And she says, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yep.
And love God, and that's the only two things that are required.
Yeah, the whole thing's incoherent, but we pretend like we put these words together and they mean something. We've just been primed for so long to be abused, and we just take it. So if somebody has this sense of authority, all right, I guess we need to follow them, right? But you're right. It's abuse, and we see the trauma that it causes.
It is abuse.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
so, breaks my heart, man.
I want to get one last word in before we move on. This article was written by Hemant Mehta, and I thought he really summed it up at the end of the article when he wrote, Graham and Perkins could have congratulated her for doing what they constantly fail to do, make their faith appealing. Yeah. Instead, they trashed Amy Grant for trying to be too much like Jesus. And I think that pretty much summed up what was happening here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking to you. You can become a member of the channel for as little as 99 cents a month, just 99 cents. Click the join button below the video. give it that. Sorry, I'm still a little verklempt from that abuse thing. This will give you access to the special chat emojis, and your name will stop being that kind of boring black color, and it'll turn into a really cool me green. Also, we have a really amazing, awesome merch store. You can visit it at tiny.cc/merchaca, and you can get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. You can also check out newer items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags, which apparently they don't have in England. All ACA shows feature a special limited edition item every month. We've got a great t-shirt for this show this month with a wall on it and everything. So be sure to check out our store for NP merch and merch from all the other shows. And with that, we are going to go down to the Caribbean, and who was better to take us there than Phil? So what do you got for us, Phil?
Oh, yes, this is wonderful. This wonderful news from the Caribbean. Step in the right direction for Barbados.
Yeah, you know what? Can I pull back for a minute, because I was going to sing. This is a step in the right direction.
No, that was beautiful.
Great, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I told you guys I was an idiot.
You did a great job. I'm proud to deny that I know you.
But basically, let me give some context first for this, right? Back in late July 2019, and this will have been just over a year after Trinidad and Tobago High Court judge struck down in Trinidad and Tobago the buggery and indecency laws, right? At that time, evangelical pastors and church leaders here in Barbados, seeing the writing on the wall, protested and said to the government here, not here at all, stand firm on anti-gay laws, right? Or what we call the Sexual Offences Act. At the time, there was a human rights challenge to those laws filed by a trans woman and two other Barbadians, a lesbian and a gay man. At the time, one of those evangelical church leaders claimed to acknowledge that sexuality was about choice, but it's not really about choice.
Nope.
I think they were wrong about that, but contended that the church has a duty to steer persons towards the right choice. It's not a choice.
Nope.
Yeah. So coming forward to present, fast forwarding to December 2022. All right. You had a case was filed by two Barbadian LGBTQ advocates, Renee Holder McLean Ramirez, and Raven Gill. And Raven Gill is the founder of a LGBTQ organization called Butterfly Barbados, right? And they joined together with a local LGBTQ organization called Equals, and did the case as a community support. And also they had the support of LGBTQ umbrella organization called the Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality, right? So these groups came together to challenge this law. And what will have might have influenced the judge's decision to strike down in Barbados to strike down this law also is that between 2019 and 2021 there was a decision from a top regional human rights tribunal that found that laws criminalizing LGBTQ people across the Americas, including the Caribbean, violate international law. So, guys, what did they all think about that, Scott?
Well, I have to tell you, when I see a story like this, I have almost one of those proud papa moments. I think, oh, look, our society's growing up, you know, oh, we're maturing, we're getting better. You know, growing can be painful. It can be painful for the child, it can be painful for the parent, but it's something we all have to do. And I think this is just a sign. This is just one of our growing pains as our society you know, becomes more mature. And so, yeah, we acknowledge that there's progress being made here, but it also highlights the cold truth that we still have a long ways to go. And one of the quotes from the article really it impacted me more than I would have expected. So this was by Raven Gill, who was one of the claimants in the case. They said, "This will definitely mean that I and my community can navigate life with just a little more ease and comfort in the knowledge that Barbados has taken a step to understand us and respect us." And you know, if I just read it like that, it would seem like, you know, just something inadvertently somebody would say after winning a case. But you know, if you think about it, they're really saying that, you know, if when I look back on my own privilege, on my own life, I've been able to date and to marry whomever I wanted, and I didn't have to get shit from my family about it. I didn't have the government trying to, you know, dig its nose into my business, and it's just because I happen to be you know, a certain way that the other people consider to be appropriate, that some people, I should say, consider to be quote unquote appropriate. And so that made my life easier in that respect, but it highlights the fact that it's not that way for everybody. Not that it, you know, people get shit for this kind of thing, not just the kind of shit that your mother giving you a disapproving look, or your neighbors kind of whispering about you behind your back, but people wanting to outlaw what you are and what you do, and who you love, and whether or not you can build a family together, and, you know, and all kinds of things. And it's just, it's heartbreaking and embarrassing. It's embarrassing that there are areas in this world where people are like that. And and so it's good that we have these steps, these baby steps that are towards a better world. But that means, though, that we still have lots of steps that we need to take. But at least we're taking a step in the right direction, right? I said the thing, there it is. Anyway, so Jason, what are your thoughts here?
Well, you know, I want to be optimistic. But the thing that kind of makes me nervous is this. So apparently the Barbados High Court issued only an oral ruling saying it found such laws unconstitutional, but they won't release a written judgment detailing its reasons until late January. And now it wasn't immediately clear if the government planned to appeal. That's the thing. Now, Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley, I believe is how it's pronounced, is considered an ally of the LGBTQ community, and once called for abolishing the laws when she was the island's attorney general. That said, apparently there are a few Christian organizations that still have some sway, and there's still the possibility of the government appealing the situation. That terrifies me, because we have seen shit like that happen recently in the fucking US. I live in Texas. I mean, come on. We have the worst people right now. I mean, we had an opportunity to vote out Abbott and his bros, and we failed fucking miserably. I'm just terrified that I don't want to celebrate too soon. You know, I know, Kelly, you've got some feelings on this, man. How do you feel about that?
I'm really happy to see this happen, and I'm hoping that this kind of what really is good that I like to see is that this kind of legal thing is happening all across the Caribbean right now. There's only 6 countries left in the Caribbean that this is still illegal in, right? And that is a really, really great improvement over 10 years ago. What bothers me is that just because you make something legal doesn't mean that society is going to accept it. And even in a more progressive country like the United States, we have still people, as many of you know, people striking back against this. I mean, our last story just showed that, right? They're not able to accept the LGBTQ community. The laws do help with that, though. They show people that people in this community are people too. They're just like you. They do deserve rights just like you. They deserve to exist and be just like you. They're no different than you. And it bothers me to see Christian organizations and churches, who are the big opposition down there and also up here, to be coming out against this and hiding their bigotry behind their religion, because that is what they're doing. They're hiding bigotry behind their religion. And that bothers me a whole lot. Bothers me a lot. Go ahead.
Cal, right. You see, the Christian churches here are, as you said, hiding behind bigotry. They're hiding their bigotry behind religion. And, what they are saying, I've said in the past, and I'm still saying it to today, is that the LGBTQ is trying to push their agenda on the children. That's their argument. And it's crazy. And then on top of that, recently with this ruling, Seventh-day Adventist pastor came out, and basically what I say here, this is what the evangelicals express. This is their feelings, because I've been following this for a number of years. He's claiming it's going to be, he's saying it could be the open doorway for legalizing same-sex marriages in Barbados. And then he is saying, it's going to be an open door for doing this. And then, what it's going to put our churches in a compromising position.
Fucking assholes.
Your organization.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Fuck that compromising position.
Yep.
Because it is about people and the trauma people suffer. And he's using a slippery slope fallacy. And legalizing same-sex marriages in Barbados does not put their evangelical organizations in any compromising position.
I think,
and and the question is, why do Christians always have to resort to these slippery slopes when they are being bigots? Jason,
I think they're building that fucking narrative. They're trying to create boogeymen and boogie women and boogie people. It's like, okay, I'm a queer dude. I have an almost 11-year-old daughter. I don't try to tell her you just need to be in. It's like we just talk about science fair projects and wrestling and Muay Thai.
What, you didn't get a copy of the agenda?
No, I don't have the agenda yet. I don't know. Like, am I not brainwashing my daughter well enough? I mean, I haven't got the atheist brainwashing queer manifesto yet, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I need to do more episodes on here and y'all finally share it with me. I don't know. It's just, but it's like, here you go. You look at me. Here's somebody. I'm a real person. I like everybody. That's what I'm into. Cool. Why do I have to be illegal? Why am I not allowed to live life and marry somebody and be just as miserable as any other married couple? I mean, I should be allowed to be miserable sleeping next to a dude as miserable as I am sleeping next to anybody else. It's okay, right? Yeah. I mean, I just, but that said, and I'm going to pass on Scott after this. Phil, I don't know if I disagree, but I think it is a threat to their organization. I really do. Not to the sanctity of it, to the existence of it. Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna ruin it. But the more people that realize you're fucking full of shit, you're a bad person, you're gross, you've been harming me.
Let's face it. A lot of religion is based on bigotry, right? We got the Christians with the LGBTQ community that they can't handle here. We got Muslims with the way they treat women. We got the Hindutva going on in India right now, where if you're not a Hindu, you're another person and you're less than everyone else. Yeah. And this is something that is deeply rooted in religion. And it's one of the main flaws of religion. And when we one day, hopefully at some point in the far future, finally get rid of religion, it's going to all be for the better.
Well, I listen to everything that you're all saying, and it all kind of smacks of, Jason, you just said, I'm a person you shouldn't have to say that. You shouldn't have, you know, you are a person. It's ridiculous that somebody has to say that. Here we are in 2023 now, and there are people having to say, yeah, I'm a human being. Seriously? Is this really? It would be funny if it's not so horrible. And so this exact thing, this gives them a tool to separate from them and us. It's a dehumanization tool.
Yes,
okay. It's easier to separate. It's easier to not care about somebody if you don't think that they're a person. It's easier to not care if they think all atheists are Satan worshipers, or if they think all gay people are pedophiles, or if they think all this is that, or they think all that is the other. And so it's all boils down to this us versus them mentality, which is a human trait. I mean, let's face it, we all fall victim to this. It's whether or not we're aware of it and whether we can modulate it and that kind of thing. But it's a human thing, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And so what Kelly was saying is, if we could get rid of religion, is things going to be better? Well, I mean, we'd have one last bad thing. I mean, but we're human beings. We're pretty good at coming up with bad fucking things. And so, you know, it's hard to imagine that there's not something that's going to come and take its place, but it's the monster in front of us. And so we can deal with it. And it all comes down to that separation. You know, it's the us versus them. And it's, you know, it's not gonna end well, I don't think.
No, it's not. And the other thing is that it's not just these thoughts and sentiments that these religious leaders, bigoted ideas that they put forward, trickles down to, of course, is among the congregants and some people. Because I was reading some of the comments, I think it's related to this article or the one from 2019, and the comments made by local folks. And one person called, Ben Jason talked about being a person. The comment that that person made about LGBTQ does not see LGBTQ as people. He said that LGBTQ thing,
gross,
or those LGBTQ things. I was like, this is gross. They don't consider, right? And
gross does not even begin to describe that.
It's really, really sad. It gets me really angry when they behave like that. And of course, the attachment pedophilia thing with LGBTQ. Well, that's crazy. It's
I want to see other religious people stand up and say, no, that's wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, well, they do. They do. They do. Like we need to see more of it.
You know, yes, right. And one other thing, the same pastor made us another lame ass concern, stating that religious leaders will be asked or forced to officiate weddings of same-sex couples. That's a red herring. It has nothing to do with granting the rights for discriminated persons. Is also a non sequitur, because that does not follow from granting the rights of discriminated people.
And what does religion have to do with marriage? That's their way to fucking subjugate.
That's it. True. Correct.
That's their way. They subjugate fucking morality. They subjugate the law. They subjugate health and I mean, no, fuck all that. That's disgusting. Yeah, I don't want to be a part of you as much as you don't want to be a part of me. So cool. You go over there and do your weird fucking woo-woo bullshit. Yeah. I'll go enjoy my life.
I don't want to cut everybody off. We are starting to run a little bit short on time. I think we all got a little worked up on this segment. We got a little anger out.
Serenity now.
I got a little amusing story. I don't want to belittle this subject that we just did. I was working on my show notes for this, and the title of this segment was Barbados Changed Puggery Laws. My son, who's pretty witty, came up behind me, looked over my shoulder, saw the title, and went, "Oh, I'm glad you can be an entomologist there now."
It's over my head.
I just hope everybody got a little laugh out of that, calm down from that anger. But I do want to take time out before the end of the show here to say that if you enjoyed what you saw here today and you want more of it, you can join our fan social media outlets. You can find many of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of Discord. Jason and I are there all the time. And you can find that by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And also find us on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. If you would like to support the show, and we encourage it, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, I know many people don't like Amazon, but I use it all the time. And if you do, you can support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the ACA as the beneficiary. Be sure to use that link to help out the ACA because we really, really appreciate it. And another thing we appreciate, we really value your feedback. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like about the show in the comments below, or you can email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. Also, you should visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org for the latest of what's been happening. And feel free to contact us through the email at ACA, or to contact the ACA through email at tv@atheist-community.org. And I want to give everybody final thoughts here. Jason, you want to start us out there on the far end?
I'm feeling kind of optimistic. I think it's going to be just like anything with human progress, it's going to be kind of a slow drag. But the more we see people stick together and stand up, especially with things like the internet and communication and globalization, I feel like we can maybe heighten that drag into like an exponential snowball. But I think if I could encourage anybody to do anything, it's get involved, get educated, and invade and take over. That's going to be the best way. Yeah, vote. But how about instead of voting, you take over and be the one getting voted in? So I don't know. That's all I've got.
Scott?
What he said. That pretty much sums it up right there. I do want to take a quick sec to thank my fellow panelists here. There was lots of sharing happening of personal experiences, and I know that can be difficult, but it really shows that these are important topics, and they're important to us personally, and rather not just in groups and things like that. And so I appreciate all that all of you have shared with us today. I think it's very important that we have these kind of discussions, and I'm thankful that we have this opportunity to have these discussions in a way that other people can benefit from them as well. So thank all of you.
Thank you, Scott. Phil?
Yeah, we have to keep continuing holding these religious leaders accountable, and making them accountable, and the parishioners need to make them accountable. The government, the police need to make them accountable, charge and convict. When they fall out of line, they're human beings just like anyone else. No special place.
Yeah.
Right? And in terms of LGBTQ, I think humanists and LGBTQ plus groups have still a lot of work to do, because as we realize, the bigots are not going to go away that easily, right? And they're going to try to push their religion, their dogma on everyone else.
Their agenda.
So there's still a lot of their agenda. Their agenda. And so we have to keep fighting against that. Otherwise, the rights of persons will always be trampled upon. Everybody's rights will be trampled upon. So the work has begun and started here. You have to say, in Barbados, have been going on. Persons have been trying, and you just got to keep pushing on, because I know the church, especially evangelical churches, are going to be pushing back hard.
Yeah. All right, and I just want to really quickly say what an honor it was to be the conductor for the first show of the year, and what an honor it was to be with you three here. And as Jason said, I am optimistic as well, because there are people like Jason Friedman and Scott Dickey and Phil the Caribbean Skeptic that are out there saying these things and spreading this word. I think that's a really good sign that we are moving places when we got such quality people to voice these opinions and get the word out there. So I do want to thank you both, all three, very, very much. And with that, I want to thank everybody out there for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.